Welcome to Business Talk with Meghan McNulty, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of business success and reveals the strategies, insights, and stories that drive these professionals to thrive in the ever-evolving world of business. Whether you're an established entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply fascinated by the world of commerce, this podcast is your front row seat to learn from the best. Each episode, Meghan will bring you engaging interviews with professionals from diverse industries who will share their triumphs, lessons learned, and the insights they've gained along the way.
Hi, Antonella. How's it going?
Good. Happy Tuesday. Thank you for having me.
Of course, happy Tuesday. We're so excited to have you at CWLA, which is California Women's Leadership Association. And I wanted to see if I could ask you a few questions today so we can learn more about you. I hope you don't mind. I kind of want to start with you telling us a little about your journey and what led you into leadership, because you're in many leadership roles.
I am. It's true. And my husband, jokes that I just love to take non-paying positions. I don't know. I keep thinking the more I take, then it'll keep motivating him, to make more and more so I can give more and more away, maybe.
I love that.
Yeah, but we'll see. The kids, they hold things up on the finance side. So, sure. So I can tell you a little bit about my current leadership roles. So with Orange County United Way, I sit on the board of directors, but also on the executive committee and co-chair the advocacy committee. And until a couple months ago, I was the inaugural or the initial leadership chair for United for Student Success, which was a countywide initiative that we started actually during COVID.
Oh, wow.
So, but I, stepped back, and it's time for somebody else to kind of step up and have that experience and bring their fresh perspective. My journey with United Way started in 2009 when I was an associate with Paul Hastings, the law firm. They did a corporate campaign for giving each year. A lot of companies did, and heard them speak, got involved, started volunteering, started to go to their events, had some leadership positions in their affinity groups, and eventually that led to them coming to me actually in 2014 and offering me a spot on the board. So I definitely was the youngest person on the board at the time. I think we had, I want to say there were like 18 members, and now I think there's like 42 maybe.
Oh, wow.
So I have a lot of institutional knowledge,
Yeah.
which is helpful. And, changing companies and career, I think what's kept me in there is my passion for the work that they do. So it's helpful for an organization, I think, to have somebody that not only, different board members serve different purposes. They have some that are able to have the support of their companies, whether they'll match the giving or their companies will underwrite for certain events. And then you have individuals who understand the work and are connectors in the community and will put in the time and kind of ideas in to help them. So I think that's why they've kept me around all these years. And then with the Board of Library Trustees, so I serve as a vice chair, it's my second year as a vice chair. That really came out of, I think, my involvement with the Newport Beach Foundation, which I currently serve as the chair. I was approached by some city council members who thought it was time for me to join a formal board and commission. I had my application in, so it wasn't that I didn't have an application in, but a spot opened with the library, which I'm passionate about, kind of all going in, learning and literacy. So it's a policy-making board, which also aligns with my legal skills. And so I do that. We set the policy for our libraries. We actually do not need city council's approval. We are kind of like a judiciary in that respect.
Interesting.
Um,
Okay.
most of the other committees in the city and commissions, they advise the city council. So they make a recommendation and then the city council will adopt it. Now we have to be consistent with, the city's charter, but we don't need them to formally approve policies that we come up with. So
Amazing.
that's kind of unique. And then finally, yes, serve as the chair of the Newport Beach Foundation and started that, gosh, 2018, probably really like the end of 2017,
Crazy.
came through with Joe, our current mayor, Stapleton, who I had known before that. We had served on Alito C board together. We're both recipients of the Metro 40 Under 40. I think my Tristan was like 3 weeks old and walking on the stage to receive this award and met Joe. And then from Alito C to, hey, Antonella, do you want to like go on this journey with me? And we're going to start this foundation. I said, sure. I love Newport Beach, and I think sounded exciting. We can get people involved. We weren't really sure everything that we were going to be able to do, but knew we had the energy to do it. And that started, and I was the vice chair and then rolled into being the current chair. So
Amazing.
that's kind of my little journey. I guess it's you raise your hand and you say yes, or you do a bad job well. I
Yeah,
don't
it's
know.
good. It's
You
good.
do the things that people maybe don't want to do, that they're like, oh,
Yeah.
you do more. And, the busier you get, the more people tap you.
Yeah.
And then I'm sorry, I'm also the vice uh, president of philanthropy for the National Charity League Juniors, Newport Beach chapter. So
Wonderful.
that's my
Okay,
really,
good.
yeah.
Okay, so now we have you at CWLA, so it's gonna be great. I guess my next question would be, what was your biggest challenge you faced like early in your career, and how did you navigate it? And then obviously we're kind of going back now.
Yeah. So, being a transactional attorney, I mean, now it's different. So I've been practicing what now, 16 years? It's like crazy to think about. But I do remember, I mean, I can tell you a story from when I was a summer associate and there was an associate in a different department. She was on the summer recruiting committee, we had our like, in the summer, you get a review like halfway, the halfway point. I'm sitting in the meeting and said, oh, there was this assignment, and I said I didn't want to do it, and I said that's not true, and I was really upset because number one, I'm trying to get a job, trying to get a job. Why would I like refuse to do an assignment? And number two, it was not true, and I was really mad, and I remember saying, this is not the kind of place I want to work if someone is allowed to give me feedback based on something that's completely fabricated. And I was mad, and I don't think they expected that. I don't know what they expected. I don't think that the other attorney who was reviewing knew that it wasn't true until my reaction was so,
Right,
and you know me for a long time, so I don't typically get mad.
right.
But so after that, I did, and I worked there for 6 years, and that got resolved. But I think, that was just a small, I think, example of needing to directly stand up for yourself. You don't need to have conflict or invite conflict, but if something is just really not right, and that kind of made him pay attention a little bit. I had another example, and that was a female associate, and I had another example a few years later where we were working on a deal and we were in San Francisco, and a similar thing happened with a senior associate who told me like we could be friends or colleagues, but we couldn't be both. And I needed to basically like,
Wow.
yeah, he's subservient. not subservient, but just like respect her authority. And I was the one who got her into our department. She was a corporate attorney, got her into our department, thought it would be helpful to us to build out this team, especially for the private equity work we were doing. A month later, she came and apologized to me. She's like 6 years senior to me, so it's very
Oh,
interesting to me. Those stand out to me because I felt like it was really unfortunate. There's some other questions here and what do you think women can do better? And I really think to support each other, and not make it so hard.
do you think there's issues unique to women that women encounter
I
in
do.
leadership roles? Yeah.
I think there's issues women encounter from other women, and I think there's issues women encounter from men. And then I think there's some issues that we create for ourselves. We're complicated. There's not just one answer. So I think sometimes from men, I, I think the sentiment across the board is women are very competent, right? We can take on many things. I just saw something the other day that was like, I don't know if women are more equipped or to handle multiple things, or we're just conditioned to do it so we don't complain about it, right? I think we're probably maybe a little bit more equipped. But so from the male perspective, I think it's like, oh, now they realize we need them on our team, right? We need women on our team. They're smart, they're capable, people trust them. There's all this research that shows that clients and people across the aisle inherently trust women more. So it helps from a negotiation or getting things done. But what then becomes the issue is, we are still viewed maybe sometimes as a little bit as of a threat in terms of credit, right? Wanting to, and we don't do a good job of saying, no, that was my idea, or I put in the long nights, or I did this. And so that gap and that disparity or discrepancy of like putting in all the work and letting somebody else take the credit for it, I think is unique to women because we're like, well, we just want to make sure we do a good job. We want to make sure, it gets done. We care about the work. We care about the value. And meanwhile, somebody else is taking the picture and grabbing the microphone and leading the meeting and saying, look at what we did, right? And maybe their first thing isn't saying, thank you, Melissa or Julie or whomever for everything you did. We couldn't have done this without you. So I think that's one. And women, I've seen it across, sometimes it's generational, where there are some women who were the only woman in her accounting firm who became partner, and that was 40 years ago. So they look at you, a younger professional of, oh, you have it so much easier, and they're reluctant to help you. But then there's some that are like, we think it's great. We want to empower you. We want to be energized by you. We want to adapt and see how we can mentor. And so that's a little bit of a double-edged sword. And you know which ones I'm talking about are the ones who meet you 5 times and still act like they've never met you.
Yeah.
Don't know. I
I have
just
the
had
same
that
issue.
happen to me the other day, and people are like, "Oh yeah, Antonella," and 100% this person knows me, and she's like, "Oh, I'm just trying to like remember, where we would have met," and I was like, "Oh, it's this and that," and anyway, but you can't take it too seriously. So I think that's it. I think, and then for women in general, it's letting other people speak for you, being afraid to say what exactly it is that you want, because you don't want to seem like you're difficult or
Mhm.
that you're causing conflict. But when you let other people speak for you, they really take away your power. It puts you in a weaker position because you're a little bit at the mercy of, is this really my hype person? Are they really my advocate? Or they also have an agenda where I'm kind of in the middle, and I've seen that too, where then the woman is like the bad guy or forced to make the hard decision, and the people, who are actually directly communicating have the relationship and are trust each other, and then they go back to the woman and are like, okay, now what do you want to do? And it puts them in a difficult position of them being the quote unquote bad, bad
Right.
guy, difficult to work with, not a get along, kind of girl. So I would really encourage women to make sure you speak up for yourself and not let somebody else speak for you. And whether that's because you think they have a better relationship or you don't want to have the conflict or it makes you uncomfortable. An uncomfortable conversation is a lot better to have yourself than to have somebody go on your behalf the majority of the time.
How do you balance assertiveness versus like approachability in your leadership style?
Yeah, I think it's something I've actually, tried to work on. Another thing that my husband Brad tells me, and he's like, you think that everybody thinks like you, like, oh, you're gonna say what you mean and you're gonna do it and you're gonna follow through. And he's like, that's really like not the case. People need follow up and clear instructions. But then they don't want to be told what to do. They want to feel a part of a, process. So it's really been trying to build connections and relationships and taking time, I can say with like the Newport Beach Foundation board, took time to meet individually with each person and trying to figure out what they're passionate about, what value they want to add, to bring them so they see like we are part of the organization. My voice is valued. My ideas are valued, not necessarily always followed or agreed with, but you have the opportunity to share, what you're thinking, and then incorporate that as much as possible. And then sometimes I need to be assertive because I can't also explain every backstory and every little detail and what the reasoning for certain things because one, it's not necessarily, necessary. And two, I don't know that not everybody like listens or appreciates it. Where you're like, no, or we can't do that because of X, Y, Z, or this just has to get done because of timing. And I think people respect that, being able to make a decision. A lot of people don't like to make decisions. They don't. And I always think that they do, but they really don't. They want you to kind of guide them and, give them the options and kind of guide them into, but I think, this one stands out more. And that seems to, I don't know, really, I think it's working, instead of shooting people down. There's other leaders that are discount people's ideas or when they say things. And I think that that's not good. Whether or not you're going to follow up on what they're suggesting, you at least need to have respect. I try, I think, to be respectful, to people. So, and in turn, have them respect me. And that's how you
Yeah.
build
Yeah.
like,
So they talk a lot now about like imposter syndrome, and when you're kind of first getting started, you might have a little bit of imposter syndrome. Like, have you ever maybe faced this, and how have you overcome it? Or like maybe like self-doubt about I don't know, or maybe you haven't, but
I don't know that I've really felt like an imposter. No,
it's like a
well,
tagline now. People talk about, oh,
I
you do
know.
have
I think
imposter
just
syndrome, like
because I
fake
try
it till
not
you
to,
make
I,
it kind of
I know.
thing.
Well, I try not to sign up for things that I like really have no idea about. I get like anxious, about like new things, so I try to be prepared. So I don't know. I don't know about, imposter. I can say, I makes me uncomfortable to have like recognition or praise because with that, I feel like, oh, but everybody's done so many better things, so much more. And, people are busier or have accomplished more or have invented something. And so I think maybe from that respect, not feeling like that special or that unique,
Yeah.
if that's what you're alluding to. And I think you
Yeah,
just
no,
need to,
yeah.
no, go ahead.
I would just say like I know I've been invited to things with like it has to do with like, medical devices or, estate planning. And I've been like, oh, wow, these people are so impressive. And then I get there and I'm like thinking to myself, like, oh my God, they actually don't really know that much, It's like I don't know. So that's how I've kind of like, I don't worry about it anymore because I'm like, yeah, a lot of these places I thought I wasn't qualified to be in, like I get to the table and I realize they don't know anything. It's like, wow,
Yeah.
so it's interesting. So I always tell people, don't think, you don't know as much as the other person because there's a lot of people out there that probably don't know what you know and you can help. So
Yes.
yeah.
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 And there's a lot of people who fake it.
Yeah. So I'm like, wow.
I'm always
I never
surprised.
I
I'm
never
always,
worry anymore.
yeah, I'm always surprised. I'm always like, wow. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to
No, no,
check
not at
every
all.
single box. You
Not
can
at
kind
all. What advice would you give women aspiring to be in leadership roles in male-dominated industries? What would you tell women?
I would just say to do it. I mean, I don't know what else to say. If you have that drive, you should do it. And if it's a bunch of men or not, or not nice leadership in currently in place. I'm actually reading a book, The Unexpected CEO, which is a really good book. I'll give it to you after. And she was in her early 30s and became a CFO of, Budget Blinds and jumped in with a bunch of guys and franchises and that was like, 30 years ago because she knew she could do it. And you just have to, I think women have to keep in their mind and prepare, like, okay, maybe there's going to be some like obstacles. Maybe not everybody is going to be super excited about me being in a leadership role, but find your allies, find the one guy, or two guys, find the people who are going to be your ally, who have the relationships, who will support you, who will talk positively about you, start to build a relationship, not based on I want to be, the director of the engineering department or I want to, be the spokesperson, for the company, but come at it as I want to get to know you, my colleagues. Building those relationships helps people it humanizes you. We're all human, right? It makes you more relatable. So they're not like, oh, she's one of three women in this industry or whatever, or on our team. So you just become part of the team. So I would start in the relationship building, finding your allies, even if it's one, and build it and go about it that way. And obviously do an excellent job. So there's not, holes to be poked on through like your work, but I think it all really comes down to relationships because people want to work and be around people that they like.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
that
And
I
help
mean
people that they
that
like.
yeah, and to your point about it's not always the smartest people, right?
Yeah.
Who are the ones that are the CEO, the billionaire, the president of a company, the top sales guy or girl. It's really the people that people like. And then if they like you, most of the time they trust you, good or
Yeah.
bad, that's human nature.
Yeah. What advice would you give women who are in leadership roles that also have kids at home, little kids at home specifically?
Yeah, I know. I have three, so I think overall it is a positive, a really big positive to your children. I want to remind them that you are showing a very good example of being a caring and compassionate person for your family and showing your children how you can care about the community, right? Whether it's your church or your city or your county or your country, or dogs, whatever, SPCA, but you're showing them that there's something more than just themselves or yourself, and you're willing to give your time and lead. So I want women because you feel guilty, right? I wish I was at this baseball game and instead I'm hosting this class, and is this really more important? But then you come home and your kids ask you about it. Like they do, because now they're, 11, 9, and 7. How was it? How was DCP, Mom? What did you guys talk about?
Yeah.
Um, so making sure what you take time away from your family to do is worth it. that it's giving you, you're able to add your value and you feel valued. And then you feel like you can show your kids, something positive because they will mirror that hope, is the hope. And really, you need a good team. There's no way that I could do this without my husband being willing to join this logistical jigsaw puzzle with me, and fill in when I need him. I try to plan as far out in advance as possible. It's just scheduling and communication. Again,
Mhm.
that communication word. So that's really it. And yeah, give yourselves grace because for working moms and then you volunteer on top of it, it's a lot. And then know too when your kids really need you to be there and just say no to some things and people understand,
Yeah.
prioritize.
Um, what changes would you like to see in leadership culture to better support women? Or do you think that we're going good?
I think it goes back to, well, I think we're trending in the right way for sure. I think I would like to see it where it's the best candidate versus, a female candidate
Right.
versus male candidate versus whatever denomination, ethnicity candidate. I would love it where people could focus on the substance. Um, but that's the whole, I don't think social media is going to help us out with that one anytime soon, but you never know. And I really think it comes back to women being able to speak for themselves and take the credit. I know women, at different levels in government who have made big changes and are the ones behind the scenes or at the meetings and rolling up their sleeves and maybe not necessarily making a bunch of friends because they're being assertive and saying things need to change. And then I'm watching their counterparts come and, get the LA Times article written about them or have their picture in it and come in at the last moment. So women really need to be comfortable with positive recognition and being okay in the spotlight and taking credit for their work. They don't need to just be the worker bee, and getting things done. They also need to have a little bit of that ego, right? I think
Yeah.
that's a difference versus sometimes men and women is can be the ego. Um,
Okay. And then I guess I want to close out here with what advice would you give to young girls?
I mean, it's a little bit different now, but I would just say to stay authentic to who you are. And sometimes that's really hard, because there's a lot of pressure to conform and not make waves and be nice. And I don't, what does that mean? I'm not sure what that means, but I know if you're authentic, eventually people, maybe not everybody's going to be your best friend, but they will respect you and you'll feel good about who you are and what you're accomplishing. And don't be afraid. Like, I wish I, listened to my internal voice more and took more risks because, and I still do this. And that's why, like, I'm much more of a risk taker, than my husband. He's much more like conservative because I always think about what's the worst thing that can happen, what's the worst thing? And then go through that scenario. And then I'm like, okay, if this doesn't work,
Yeah.
this will happen and we'll be okay. But if it does work, it could be
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have a regret. So be authentic, listen to your voice, don't ignore it. Your internal voice that tells you yay or nay, or the idea that pops in your mind, don't talk yourself out of it. Like, go for it. Because if not you, it's going to be somebody else.
Right. Yeah, I love that. It's important to take risks. Well, we're so excited to have you at CWLA, and I'm sure we'll be talking more. And for those listening, we're always looking for women leaders that want to join our organization. And we have a lot of opportunities for women in leadership positions to network and also, learn new skills about becoming a better leader. So that's what our organization's about, and we want to support women in those roles. So thanks, Antonella.
Thank you
Uh,
so much, Megan, for having
yeah,
me and CWLA. I can't wait to get more involved.
yeah. I know. And also, Ansel is one of our new board members. So I forgot to say that at the beginning. But anyway, so we'll be hearing more. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing to the Business Talk podcast and leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us grow and improve. Thank you for joining us today. This has been another episode of Business Talk with Meghan McNulty.